just feel like we're in this, you know, in this living in this world now where, people are just dug in to their extremes and are refusing to sort of just have a normal conversation and maybe learn something.
Hey guys, this is Ryan, and this podcast is actually being brought to you guys by Thin Line Anthem. I know we've mentioned them before, but Thin Line Anthem was actually started by first responders, and they even donated part of their proceeds to first responder nonprofits. And so if you guys can, please support them. They're doing some phenomenal work, and I actually love their products. I take their protein and their pre-workout. So if you're trying to accomplish any of your fitness goals, please go on to thinlineanthem.com and use promo code It's Needed, all caps, no spaces, so that way you guys can go ahead and get your product and start your journey to professional and personal wellness. Thanks again, and God bless. Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo.
That's a sad intro, and the reason it's a sad intro, if you're watching this, you already could see. If you're not,
the beard is gone.
To know. The beard is gone.
You could do it a few different ways because it's all about tone. You went down on Popo, so you went, oh no, it's the Popo. You could easily say, oh no, it's the Popo.
Exactly. Why this was sad. This one was meant to go down because the beard is gone. But it feels good. The wife likes it, so life is good.
So Oliver, last week AJ had this beard. He looked like a lumberjack meets Rick Ross. It looked like Rick Ross and a lumberjack had a baby together. So the Maybach music is gone, so he's cut it, man. So you look good.
Why did you cut it? Why did you cut it?
Oh, you know what? Truth be told, I just got bored. I was sitting at the house. I had nothing to do. I was like, oh, I'm going to cut my beard. And then as soon as I cut it, I regretted it. I was like, why did I do that? Like, I should have kept this for at least a couple more weeks.
Bro, that reminds me of the scene from Napoleon Dynamite when what's his name cuts his hair. Have you ever seen Napoleon Dynamite?
Oh, man.
I don't remember that scene, though.
Remember, what's his name? Pedro. Pedro was in the tub.
Oh, yes. Yep.
He was like, I just got really hot.
Yeah. That's it.
Really hot. So
the funny thing is, it was so thick, like when I was shaving it or cutting it, it was coming off like sheep's wool, like it was just rolling up. I was like, what am I gonna do with all this hair?
Oh man, that's hilarious. So we are also joined today by the savage himself, Mr. Billy. What's going on, Billy?
What's going on, everyone? AJ, next time you're bored, take up cooking or something. Leave the beard alone.
I know. I'm sad. I appreciate that input, though. Hey, I'm going to think about that.
Billy had to think about that. He was like, what can AJ do other than grow beards out?
I'm a chef, though. If I pick up any more cooking, it's going to be dangerous.
Oh, man. Yeah,
you know what I just bought? The big green egg.
So that's my next purchase, actually.
What is that?
Because my brother is a smoker.
Yeah, it's a smoker and grill. You can make pizzas. You can actually make desserts on it. I've only cooked about 2 cooks on it so far. I'm doing pizza tonight. I'm doing slow cooked ribs, slow cooked brisket.
I know where we gotta go. Shoot, I know exactly where we need to go.
My brother has one, and every time we go over to his house, I'm like, you need me to pick up brisket on the way? You need me to pick up pizza stuff, wings, ribs? What you need me to pick up?
Well, we're going to fly out to go meet our guest today. And so if you guys are wondering whose voice this is on here, this is my man, friend of mine, new friend of mine, but good man. I actually was on him and his sister's podcast a few weeks ago, and this is Mr. Oliver Hudson, man. Oliver, what's going on, man, other than cooking in the green egg that I'm going to be eating out of tonight?
I'm good. I'm in Colorado. You know, we've had a ranch out here for 37 years, and it's sort of second home. And, everyone's remote learning at this point. The kids are, so we're sticking it out, here until we have to come home. But, it's the silver linings in all of this. You can experience things that you normally wouldn't have. And that's what we're doing. Why come back to LA when I got when I got the mountains. You know?
Well, you know, the best part about this whole conversation is I now know I have a ranch to go to in Colorado.
With a green egg.
With the green egg.
That's right. You're welcome anytime.
I'm like, hey, Oliver, where you at, man? I got off the freeway. I don't know where to go now.
I'm right in front of this ranch. I don't know what to do.
My kids are wondering when they keep asking Daddy if we're there yet.
They're hungry, so we got to figure something out.
Oh, man. Well, good for you, man. Oliver, thanks for coming on, man. It is, man, I can't tell you how much I really appreciated going on to your and your sister's podcast. If you guys haven't listened to it, it's called Sibling Revelry, and it is a phenomenal podcast. And I've actually heard really good reviews from. I've had people hit me up and say they actually loved the episode.
Good.
And so, so thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I loved it. It was one of my favorite ones, and I'm not just saying that because, especially, you know, with everything that as a country we're experiencing right now, I just think perspective is important. You know, I think we can get very myopic and one-sided, and you know, the blinders go on and you can't see again that certain facts, you know, and having you guys on was just a great it was offering just a different side of things, you know, and I like that. I like that part of it. You know, it was enlightening for me and hopefully for the people listening to it as well.
Man, well, thanks so much, man. Like I said, I truly enjoyed it. And before we get into our today's topic, what I want to do is I want to go over some current events. So since the last time we had our episode, and without getting in politics, but we're going to get into politics for just a second. And that's only because it's current. I know Kamala Harris was named the VP running mate with Biden. And, you know, it's one thing that's funny with politics in general. I don't care whether it's Democratic, Republican, whatever, but I just always found it weird. Like, people can bash each other so much in debates, but the moment their number is called to be like the VP or Secretary of State, is like, all is forgiven now. It's like, oh, okay, we cool now. And and I think that's what bothers me so much with politics is like, it's like, where is the true, where is the genuineness? Like, where is the, you know, like, what's the whole idea that they always say, like, you know, your name is one of the most valuable things that you can, like, don't sell out just based off of selling out. And, you know, I think we've seen some of that on both sides of the spectrum, you know, in many different ways. And like I said, I don't want to get super political, but when I saw that, I just remember Kamala Harris going off on Biden about how he's just racist and this and that and all the other stuff. And then she gets named as the VP, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh, we about to conquer the world together.
Oh, yeah, we cool.
we cool. Did I say that? Oh, no, I didn't say that. So,
yeah, well, that's the problem with politics, and honestly, that's why I've always hated politics, and I've never even been involved with politics until Donald Trump became president, and I was just so shocked that I just needed to dive in. And honestly, but I've been going back now to read a lot about, you know, different presidents and you know, it's a bummer for me, honestly, because I wish I paid this much attention when Obama was president. I could get involved in our political system in a way. But I agree with you, man. I mean, the hypocrisy in politics is so extreme. That where does integrity live? You know what I mean? Like, how are you how do you have integrity as a human being when you can just go from one side to the next and flip flop and do this? And Kamala can say, you know, to Joe Biden, you know, you were for segregating, basically not busing kids in, and you did this and you did that, you know. But hey, it's politics. It's literally a thing. You know, it's an actual thing. But it's hard to swallow sometimes, because where does the truth exist?
Exactly.
You know?
So I had an interesting conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday. So I just met this guy. His name is KB. And KB, he's a firefighter in Minnesota. So when I went out to Minnesota a few weeks ago, I met him. And very, very nice guy, man. He actually, one of his restaurants was burned down when the whole George Floyd thing happened. So he's a restaurant owner, and his restaurant was burned down because of all the looting and everything. And so, interesting story about him is he actually went on and he started a GoFundMe page to kind of start recouping some of the stuff and raised a tremendous amount of money. But instead of putting all that money into his restaurant, he actually put that money back into the community and different things to help other people. Because he's like, you know what, as I always talk about, you know, you're being blessed to be a blessing to others. That's right. And so that's exactly what he did. And so KB has a wonderful story. But the reason I bring this up is because yesterday he called me, or he texted me actually. No, he calls me first. I don't answer because I'm at work. He texts me. He says, "Hey, hit me up, man. I have an emergency question to ask you." So as soon as I get off the call, I call him. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And he's like, "Hey, so," and I don't even know if he wants me putting this out there, but I am. He was like, "Hey, so the president, the Donald Trump's campaign, or his Donald Trump's team has reached out to him a few times because they want to talk to him. So the first 2 or 3 times, he's basically told him no. And so he said again, he was like, "Hey, man, he wants to talk to me." I got his campaign, or not always his team reached out to him again because they're going to be in Minnesota, I guess today, and they want to meet with him. And so the dilemma he was having, and again, I know it's a rightful dilemma, but it's a sad dilemma for where we're at. Is he was like, "Hey, man, I'm worried that if I meet with him, people are going to look at me as being a sellout in my own community, the black community, because I'm meeting with Donald Trump."
He's black, I'm taking.
Yes,
right?
he's black. And,
Yeah,
and I
okay.
told him, I said, "Look, man," I was like, so he was like, "So I'm coming to you for advice because I know you've dealt with this in different capacities as an officer, this and that." And I'm like, "You know what? It used to bother me. That stuff used to bother me. I used to do things to please other people. I used to do things for the sake of not trying to, ruffle any feathers. And I still, in many ways, am very strategic with my responses to things, because it's not because I'm being cowardice or anything like that. It's just I want to make sure, like the old saying is in the book, in the what's the book called? As far as dang it, I can't remember. Anyways, it goes back to basically saying, you may not win every battle. It's not about winning the battle. It's about winning the war. And so I'm very strategic in my responses to people because I recognize there's a bigger piece to this. So anyways, long story short, I told him, I was like, "You know what, man, you got to do things for the right reasons. Don't be so distracted by what everybody else may think of you, what everybody else may say of you." And that's kind of why we've gotten to where we're at now, is because we're so worried about what the other side is going to think. And I was like, it's sad. One of the things I see is, without, saying it's okay to be a Republican or a Democrat or vice versa, it's sad that as black people, if you see a black Republican, you cast stones at them right away, as opposed to just hearing out why they're Republican, and vice versa. Like if you hear somebody being a Democrat, you just cast stones at them because, oh, they're a Democrat, without actually listening to them. And so I said, "Man, meet with," I was like, "It's up to you." If it was me, I would meet with them, because at least I would have the opportunity to sit down and say, I had a discussion with them, and you may find out, it may confirm what your preconceived notions were in the first place. You may find out, I really don't like what they're about, don't like how they treated me. Or you may meet with them and say, "Man, like, this is not what I expected. There's actually a lot more a truce to a lot of the things that I believed prior to." And I was like, do it because it's the right thing to do, or do it because you feel it's the right thing to do. Do it because it's moral and ethical. Don't do it because people may look at you another way. So what are your guys' opinions on that?
Well,
and then now we'll get into that topic.
I have a question, actually. In what capacity do they want to use him, so to speak? Do they want to interview him? I mean, do we know what they want to talk to him about? Is it Trump's campaign, or is it Trump himself?
I have no idea, and I didn't ask him that. And my biggest thing for not asking was, either way, if you go there and meet with them, then they're gonna have to get your endorsement to use whatever video, whatever. If this was like a political ploy, they would still have to get his approval to say, "Hey, look, you can post this or not." So I said, at the very least, you can meet with them.
Yeah. See, that's the problem that I have, especially with Trump. And it's not about Republican, Democrat. I think Trump and his administration exists in a different category, in my opinion, as far as Democrat and Republican go. I know by name he is a Republican, but there's something different for me. I don't care about policy when it comes to Donald Trump. I'm a character guy, you know what I mean? And character means something to me. And our president, from a character standpoint, not just policy, is representing our nation, all the good things about it. And we're called the United States, right? It's about bringing us together. Character really matters, and no pun intended, but it trumps anything else for me. and that's the issue that I have. It's not even Republican or Democrat. And that's why you see, when you see it's like not even a black conservative. If you have a black politician or a black person who is supporting the president, it's almost like, well, do you hear him? Do you listen to him? What, I don't, sometimes I don't understand, why,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone has their reasons. Going back to what you were saying before, though, with your friend, I just wouldn't want to be used, meaning, it's that getting back to that, to politics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you really give a shit about what I did and what I'm going through?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you just using me because it's election time, man, and you need black vote, and we're going to do everything that we can to try to take some of that black vote, and we're going to use you and your story and associate with you to show you that yes, we are, we're here to support.
Mm-hmm.
I would be skeptical
Yeah.
of that.
And without it, it's politics. And what are your thoughts, AJ?
I have friends who are Democrats. I have friends who are Republicans. The same way that I have friends who are police officers, and I have friends who hate the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that is you hit the nail right on the head. There is definitely power in conversation. And that would be my advice to him, right? Like, sit down, have a talk with him or his team. Hopefully him, right? Hopefully he doesn't seem like a representative. But have a talk with him. Maybe to solidify the thoughts you already had. Like, maybe you already thought he was this type of person. You sit down with him, the first few sentences, you're like, ooh, there it is. Ooh, there it is. Yep, that's him. All right, yep, I'm done. Wash your hands. Then you can walk away knowing, yep, I had a conversation with him and it proved that he was this guy. Or maybe he'll say something that'll change your mind, right? And the only reason I say that is, back to my story, like, I wouldn't be the man that I am today if I didn't live by that, right? Like, if I didn't have a conversation with somebody who I thought I despised, being a police officer. If I didn't step out of my comfort zone and go, I'm gonna have a conversation with him, I wouldn't be here today. So there's power in conversation.
And you're so right on that, because, and that's where I think, and we've talked about this before, but like, there's so much healing in conversation, but yet we've almost come to a place where we don't even know how to have conversations anymore. And a lot of that is because of these phones. I mean, we had a episode a few weeks ago about talking about the damage that these phones have done and the FaceTime and all this stuff. But the thing is like, we don't even know how to have conversations with people anymore. So, there's so much value in healing that comes from conversation. And I was on a call last week with all these different influencers, and at first, it was one of those things where I was talking to a whole bunch of people that had different values than I did. And I almost found myself starting to go down that same path that I always accuse other people of doing. Is like, man, I don't even want to listen to them because they don't even, we don't even align ourselves correctly in the same way. But at the same time, I was like, I can't stoop down because I'd be guilty of doing exactly what I'm against. And so I was like, let me listen to them. Let me understand them. And I'll give them my point. And I won't even be, it may be frustrating, but I'm not even going to come from a frustrating place and treat them like that, because that's what's the uniqueness about being human beings, is we're all entitled to our own opinions. We're all entitled to feel how we are. I was on that same phone call with Leon, who was shot 5 times by police, and Artie, who was sentenced to life in prison. And it was funny because here it is you got me on this call, you got Artie on the call, like I said, who was sentenced to life in prison for murder, and you got Leon on the call, who was shot 5 times by police. So, and then there's all these other people on here that are having this discussion, and all these other people are having saying all these crazy things. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need to get rid of this, we need to get rid of that. And at the end of the day, me, Leon, and Artie are actually having the most educated conversation that's not built on any emotion, who actually we should be the ones that are the most emotionally charged by this, but we're not. And I was like, you see, that's the problem right there. It was like, we're able to have a discussion. Me and Leon are cool with each other, like almost brothers, and yet he has every right to say, I don't like police. I don't never need to talk to police because I was shot 5 times by police. But yet we can have a discussion while all you guys have no stake in anything, are arguing about all these different topics, but yet you don't have any type of tie at all. And I think that's what's so sad about the current state we live in, is that nobody wants to go out and do the work. Everybody wants to talk, but nobody actually wants to go and invest the work and put the work in to make things better. So
the pendulum is also swinging, really, from one side to the other. And I'm not talking about left or right as in politics. It is just swinging. So you have people who are digging into their extremist views on things, whether you're hyper left or hyper right. whether it's, on gender and sexuality, religion, politics, whatever it is, like it's funny. I just feel like we're in this, in this living in this world now where, people are just dug in to their extremes and are refusing to sort of just have a normal conversation and maybe learn something,
Well, and one of my buddies, Gordon, talked about it. You remember this, AJ? Gordon talked about it last week. And what it creates is something that's called unintended consequences. So because we're so polarized, we don't make rational decisions. Like our rational decision making goes out the window. And because we're like, hey, here's my opportune time to strike on this topic, then we make a decision, but yet we don't think about the unintended consequences that it may have. And we're seeing that. If we go back to, we talk about defunding the police. You look in Seattle, and I think Austin actually just took $150 million away from the police department. And some of these places that they've already done that, they're seeing a lot of the unintended consequences. So on one end, they were like, oh yeah, man, let's get rid of the police, man. This is ridiculous. And people capitalized on that moment that came on the heels of George Floyd. But now they pushed all these measures through, and now they're seeing the consequences of it, and they're like, whoa, we didn't want that to happen like that. It's like, well, that's what happens when you stop rationalizing and you start forcing things based off of your emotion. And that kind of leads me into the topic for today is facts versus feelings, coupled with responsibility of influencers. And so the reason I tie those together is because I've been getting into a lot of discussions of facts versus feelings, and where do you draw the line? When is it okay to say that it's okay to feel this way, but then when is it okay to say, okay, I understand that you feel this way, but we also have to put some facts? Oliver, man, you sent a podcast over to me. I can't even remember the title of it, and I listened to the whole thing. It was long, but I listened to the whole thing.
Yeah. Sam Harris,
and
yeah, it was called. I think it was called "On the Brink" or "Can We Come Back from the Brink" or something.
Yes.
Like
and one of the things that's funny about this is Oliver, based on your short time knowing me, I think Oliver's kind of getting a sense of where I am as far as the type of guy I am, what some of my values are. And Oliver's like, hey, this guy, he has a podcast. I think he's an atheist guy, but he actually has some good or some information. I want to know your thoughts on it. So again, going back to being the example of what it is, practicing what I preach, the moment Oliver told me he's atheist, I could be like, no, I'm definitely not listening to that. I could have easily did that. And that's what a lot of people do right now. They're like, oh, I'm not messing with that. But I was like, no, I'm gonna listen to it. And sure enough, I listened to it, and despite I don't necessarily agree with some of the things that he was saying, but when it talks about the police stuff and the facts behind it, my man was spot on. Like he lays out all the facts about the numbers, about how many minorities are actually killed by police and this and that. And I was like, wow, like my man is hitting the nail on the head. And so not only did I get knowledge from that podcast, but I actually had a different perspective and different viewpoint from some of the things. So tell me, Oliver, why you sent that to me, and what were, I mean, I'm assuming you listened to the whole thing. Yeah. What were your thoughts of it when you listened to it?
Well, a friend turned me on to it, someone who's a little on the other side of things, not fully on the other side of things, but is more of a skeptic, I guess, when it comes to what's happening right now. And, he wants to sort of be, he's trying to keep a cool head about sort of the left and the right, and he's trying to place the middle a little bit. He's a good friend of mine, and he sent me this to sort of show me the numbers, because we get in arguments about certain facts and stuff like that. Sam Harris, I respect the guy. I mean, he's extremely smart, and I just love the way he thinks, and I love the way he speaks, and I love the way he talks, and I sent it to you because it was just right in your wheelhouse, and it felt like it vibed with a lot of the things that we were saying when you were on my podcast. And I just wanted to get your thoughts. I wanted to see where you stood on topics like this when you were living in, both you guys are living in this world, and now you have an atheist. And I know you're a very religious person, and I was just interested in hearing what you would have to say. And I sort of knew you were going to like it. I sort of felt like you were going to vibe with it a little bit. There were certain things that I was, that I heard that Sam Harris was saying that I didn't agree with, or didn't go deep enough or far enough back into history, But yeah, I wanted your opinion on it, you know?
I'm glad you told me that. And now, AJ, your thoughts on feelings versus facts, and where do we get beyond people's feelings and where do we actually hit them with facts? Because that's a very, very important topic to discuss, because unfortunately, some people don't know when to hit somebody with feelings and some people don't know when to hit somebody with facts. There's a time and a place. And so again, it goes back to my comment earlier, is sometimes it's okay to lose a battle if you're going to win the war. You can't fight every
100%.
single battle. So what are your thoughts?
So I just had a conversation with somebody about the Brianna Taylor incident. And I don't know too much about it, to be honest with you. I just know she lost her life during police officers serving a no-knock warrant. And as a result of that, departments across the nation are trying to ban or are trying to ban no-knock warrants.
Yep.
They're passing, bills and laws that are abolishing no-knock warrants. For those of you who don't know, let me explain what a no-knock warrant is. A no-knock warrant is a warrant that a police officer or a police agency writes up. They take it to a judge. The judge has the final say. The judge reads it, signs off on it, or declines it. If they sign off on it, that gives that police agency the right to enter your house without announcing themselves. What they do is they ram the door, they shoot the windows out with flashbangs, smoke, whatever, right? It's something off the movies. But they go in, and the purpose of that is for the element of surprise, right? So say you have somebody who is just killed somebody, and we have intel that they barricaded their house with booby traps and they have like a gun beside them all the time. That's when like a no-knock warrant will come into play, and a lot of other times. The reason I bring that up is this is perfect timing. Just this morning, I was talking to somebody about Brianna Taylor, and I don't agree that no-knock warrants should be banned. And this person was like blown away. Like, well, do you not know that Brianna Taylor lost her life while officers was serving a no-knock warrant? And I was like, look, I'm very aware of that. And that's extremely unfortunate. I'm not trying to take away the importance of that incident and how big of a tragedy that was. But this is what I will say, because during this conversation, I started looking stuff up. The purpose of banning a no-knock warrant would be what? To preserve life, to stop officers from killing someone, right? Mm-hmm. And in today's age, I would say, we're tired of officers killing people of color. So that's why we're going to ban no-knock warrants, because it disproportionately affects people of color. I get that. Mm-hmm. I get that theory behind it. Let's break down the numbers. Last year, a total 1,004 people were killed by the police. 1,004 people were shot and killed by the police. We'll say, what's a generous number to give that would be served through no-knock warrants? Like, what would be a generous number of these amount of people that were killed for no-knock warrants?
I would say 0 or 1.
I would too.
Brianna Taylor.
I would too. But let's say 300, which is an astronomically large number. At least that's what I feel like. 300. We'll just say hypothetically, 300 of these people. I'll write it down. 300 of these people were killed by police in 2019 serving no-knock warrants. This is not real. This is just an example. Okay. Last year, 72,000 people died from drug overdoses. 72,000 people died from drug overdoses. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen if we ban no-knock warrants. I'm a drug dealer. I got 30 pounds of fentanyl in my house, ready to ship out. Ryan's a good cop. Ryan knows that I have 30 pounds of fentanyl in my house. What's he going to do? He's going to write up a no-knock warrant. But guess what? You can't do that now, Ryan, because they're banned.
Yep.
So now what do you do?
Flush it down the
toilet. You get your team together. You knock on my door. But guess what? The person that's addicted to drugs that I pay in drugs to be a lookout seen you coming, and he tipped me off. I didn't quite believe him because he had shaky info. I seen you coming with my cameras. Okay, guess what I'm going to do to those 30 pounds?
Flush it right down the toilet.
Sink, toilet, tub. Sink, toilet, tub. By the time you get into my house that's barricaded because it's a drug house. So it took you extra long to get in now because you didn't have the element of surprise. Guess how many drugs is in my house? Zero. You gonna tear my house up and you ain't gonna find nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's this do? It kills
more people.
Yep. A lot more people. We're talking 72,000 versus 1,000. Say every single one of these people that police officers shot and killed last year was from a no-knock warrant. 1,004. And every single one of them. 72,000.
But let me ask a question though, because what it sounds like though is this is the judge's discretion.
Yep.
So you're gonna get a judge who is more hardcore, and you're gonna get other judges who are more lenient, right? So it goes into the judicial system, you know. And is there any sort of reform as far as not banning the no-knock warrant, but to make it, you know, reform it and you know, give you sort of a better reason to sign?
That's a great point, Oliver.
That is a phenomenal idea. That is logically thinking, but it seems to me that more people are thinking with feelings right now. They're upset because of what they've seen, what they're constantly seeing, what they've been told, what they're constantly being told. So they're like, you know what? Just ban it. But they're not realizing what the effects of this ban will ultimately have. And the numbers will only rise. I mean, those will double or triple. I think your idea is phenomenal. Well, you know what? It's a judge's final say to sign this warrant. Can they do it or can they not? Let's talk to the judges. Let's sit the judges down and go, hey, what can we do to help change the criteria that they have to meet for you to sign this? How about that?
And what you're saying, Oliver, is what I've been trying to get at for forever, is like, stop using law enforcement as hey, they're the ones that are all the problems and we're going to fix them, when there's a lot more problems with the system in general. That's not just law enforcement. I always tell people law enforcement is like the doormat to everybody else's problems. Like, literally, we're the first line of government. So when you see us screw up, that makes it saying, hey, there's a problem with them. But I love that idea as far as, is there a standardized way that these judges are approving these warrants? Because again, that goes into, and I know this for a fact, is that, and AJ probably knows, when you go get a search warrant signed, there's different judges you know are going to be more lenient than others. There's some judges that are like, oh, just sign it. Don't even really read through it. Where I had a judge one time, I felt like I was sitting down in the principal's office because she pulled out a red pen and started going line by line, scratching stuff off. You know what I mean? And so because of that, you know, when, let's say the judge makes a mistake and should have never signed off on it, but yet now the police department is the one that takes the blame for it, the judge is actually never even hit up. So, you know, but that takes logic, that takes time, and nobody wants to do that. And again, that goes back to our point is, people are reacting based off of feelings, not facts. One of the other things I want to bring up is, you talked about 1,000. You said it was 1,004 people that were killed, AJ?
1,000. The numbers are kind of off. 1,004 is the highest number I found.
So the amount of actual contacts that police have with people on a day-to-day basis, and I think Sam Smith talked about this in his podcast, it's in the millions. And so that is an astronomically low number of people that are actually killed by police. But like you said, you got people that die every single day of drug overdoses. 78,000 people that are dying from drug overdoses. That's a lot of people. And the other thing is, I actually had a conversation last night with with my partner, and I was like, you know what would be a good idea? And if somebody listens to this and they go do it, I'm gonna be mad because they took my idea. I was like, but one of the ways we should start, we talk about police reform. Well, how can we do better policing? Well, what we should do is we need to find out what police departments are doing things the right way. I've always said, like, I think my agency does things phenomenal. Like, our training, our tactics, everything is superb. Not to say we don't make mistakes, but we are next level when it comes to our stuff. And I know that because I travel and talk to other police departments, and they're like terrible. So if you assemble a task force made up of people that are from departments that do things very, very good, their job would be to go out there to these, like a Minneapolis police department who needs better training, and they go and basically evaluate whether their training tactics and all that other stuff are, and basically say, hey, look, these are all the areas of deficiencies that you have, and now we're going to put together a game plan over the next 6 months to a year to get you guys caught up to your standards. And now we're going to throw out all your current tactics, and this is basically, so it'll be an organization, a task force that is led by some of the most phenomenal people in the industry, as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to get rid of the police department all in all, because we know that's not a fix. And so, but that takes a level of thinking, and that takes a level of out of the box, approaches to get these problems solved. And so I'm glad we're here on this topic, because that's a good example, AJ, of people going based off of feelings, not facts. That Brianna Taylor, I actually did some research on that one. And what people don't realize is that the officers and the Brianna Taylor, they actually had good intel that there was drugs being sold from this house. Brianna Taylor, she did know, there was knowledge that she knew that there were drugs being pushed out of this house. When they served that no-knock warrant, shots actually came out at the officers. Shooting started happening at the officers, and then they returned fire, and unfortunately Brianna Taylor was struck in that return fire. So what the way people put it out there is like, oh, Brianna Taylor she was, caught up in something, like she was an innocent person that was killed. She was minding her own business when she was served by, when law enforcement sold a no-knock warrant, not even realizing, like, my dad told me at an early age, like, Ryan, be careful of the people you hang out with, because people that you hang out with will get you caught up in stuff that you shouldn't even be involved in. I told somebody the other day, I took somebody to jail. I was like, bro, you shouldn't have been with them. Like, the reality of it is, if you shouldn't be with somebody, if you should be with somebody. And so there's a knowledge, Brianna Taylor knew that there was drugs being pushed from her place, or this place that she was at. So it sucks. Like, she shouldn't have died. But when you're in a house, let me imagine the four of us chilling in a house, and let's say I'm the bad guy, and none of y'all know, like, and we've been friends, and y'all know me long enough, like, man, this dude is not a good dude, but whatever, I'm just gonna hang out with him. And somebody showed up at our house, cops showed up at our house, and I start firing at the door. Like, start firing at police officers as they rolled up. Like, what do you think's going to happen? You think the police are just going to be like, oh shoot, just go for the guy in the BBU shirt, or they just going to start? They don't know who's shooting, right? And so you guys got caught up because you guys were hanging out with somebody that you guys probably shouldn't have been hanging out with. So that kind of leads me to the next topic, which is this whole idea of our influence and the responsibility that we have. There's certain people on social media that drive me nuts. And the reason they drive me nuts is because they post a whole bunch of crap without fact checking anything. And we live in a society, we live in an easy bake oven society that, oh, you know what? I've read, 3 lines on this post right now. So that's definitely the information that I got. That's the facts based on what's going on, which is not a reality. And so I think, and I've said this before, Oliver, that, with influence comes responsibility. So what I want to do is you're a person of influence. I mean, tell me, and if you don't mind, tell our audience a little bit about who you are, because I think I just jumped right in without actually saying who you are, the things that you're doing. So jump right into that, and then we'll get into the other question.
Well, I'm an actor. I got podcasts. I was fortunate enough to grow up, with celebrity parents. I mean, that had its drawbacks as well, believe it or not. I'm. It's funny. I'm I guess a semi-celebrity. I mean, when you look at the major celebrities out there,
you're major in my book, Oliver. You're major in my book. I fall below
that. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. But influence is an interesting thing, because again, it's about choice. And it always begs the question: just because you have a certain amount of followers and you do have a platform, is it your responsibility to speak out? Is it, or is it not? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. It's a tough one. Just because I have a platform, do I have to post about current events? Do I have to take a stand on things, or can I just keep that personal and do my thing in private? It's a great question. And it's one that I don't know the answer to.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Once again, I am so sorry for interrupting another phenomenal episode of the podcast, but we have to show our sponsors some love. Before we do that, I want to remind you of one thing, and that thing is this: health is wealth. I'll say it one more time. Health is wealth. We talk a lot on this podcast about being the change that you want to see in the world and overcoming the many obstacles that will be placed in your way. You can't do those things unless you take care of yourself first, which is exactly why our sponsor, Thin Line Anthem Supplement Company, is offering 20% off your entire order during checkout. So when you check out, make sure you enter "It's Needed," all capital letters, no spaces, in the promo code box, and they'll give you 20% off. I know I take the pre-workout, and when I take it, your boy is ready to lift a car, and I'm not playing when I say that. So make sure you check them out and enjoy the podcast.
Let me ask you this. Is it unfair sometimes, because I've heard this before, like it's unfair for celebrities, I guess you can say, that like some would argue that they can't have an opinion, which they're still human. Like you guys are still human beings, Oliver. You know what I mean? And the reason I like you, Oliver, because you're down to earth. And when I met you, I met other celebrities before, but you were just down to earth, man. I was like, and that's what I love and I appreciate, because sometimes, the media, we talked about the media a few episodes ago, is like the media doesn't always paint a full picture, but you're down to earth. But sometimes I think, it sounds like, celebrities can't have an opinion all of a sudden because they're a celebrity. You know what I mean? But at the same time, your opinion or a celebrity's opinion carries weight, because they have influence. You know what I mean? And so there's a fine line.
Oh, dude, there is a fine line, because you can post something and you can think that you're using your platform to sort of, spread the word to the greater good. And then you look at your comments and it's like, shut the F up, stay in your lane, you're an actor, da, 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 da. And you're like, geez, okay. Well, I mean, pick one. I mean, that's why
Pick one.
love them. Love them or hate them. Some of these celebrities who are just boom, boom, every day it's something, about pushing these, reforms and social justice and, dealing with the election. I have to admire them because they truly don't care what people think. I mean, it really comes down to that. It comes down to let going of your ego. There's plenty of hate comments on like Chelsea Handler's, stuff. But I love her because she's just unapologetic, meaning whether I believe in everything that she does and says, that's her. She's allowed to have that opinion. But what I do admire is her confidence and just that sort of idea that I'm gonna say what I say and I really don't care what you think about it. Because I do, to be straight up, I do, and then we talked about that before, about being afraid in a way, being afraid to say the wrong thing or to post the wrong thing, because we live in this cancel culture now, which is completely insane. I mean, you do one thing wrong. And by the way, you could do one thing wrong 10 years ago and they're going to dig it up and cancel you, so I have my own feelings about that. But at the same time, if you're afraid and you don't use your voice or you don't say something out of fear, then you're just being complacent and silent. And then where does that get you? Absolutely nowhere. So we have to be compassionate and forgive and have some forgiveness and give each other room to say the wrong thing when our intentions are good. You got to look at the heart of the matter, not just the moment. I think too many people in relationships, in friendships and love, in this situation, we're so quick to say you're bad and you're wrong and you're out. We need to give each other some space, for error. And that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And I think a lot of people are just too afraid to say things nowadays,
Man, no doubt about it. What are your thoughts on that, AJ?
I completely agree. Having a position of influence is dangerous or could be extremely dangerous. And the reason I say that is, we'll stick to these numbers here and this incident of Brianna Taylor losing her life. It would be easy for an influencer, say I had 1 million followers, to hop on my platform and go, yeah, arrest those killers, arrest the killers that killed Brianna Taylor. And then say 10% of my following are hardcore followers, right? Like they know that I do my research, and even if I don't do my research, they know that their beliefs align up with my beliefs, and they're going to take what I say and run. Those 10% of a million are going to go out to their circles and influence their people based off of what I said. And it's a trickle down effect, right? And before you know it, the simple fact that I posted what I posted on social media has influenced the masses without me fact checking it. So you have to be careful how you use your influence. If you're going to use it to influence people like politically or, as far as like stuff like this, you need to do your research. You need to do your research. Me personally, I choose to use my platform for positivity. That's what I want. There's so much negativity when you hop on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and, especially in this cancel culture, like there's so much negativity. Like I want to be that light. I want to be that person that no matter how bad your day is going, no matter how good your day is going, you're going to go to my page and see something positive. I don't want to get wrapped up in all that. And the issue.
No, sorry. But I wanted to say it before I forget it. The problem is, do your research, right? Which I totally agree with. The issue now is everyone is doing their own research on their own sides of things.
Biased research.
Biased research. And by the way, media just in general, who knows what to believe? Everything is an opinion. There's no more straight news anymore. So everyone's research is so skewed because one's getting research from the Huffington Post and another one is getting their research from Fox News or something even more extreme. And so there's this conflict of truth. What is the truth? What is fact nowadays?
And that's where the value
muddy. Fact is blurry, man. Like what is fact?
And that's where the value of staying in your lane comes in. Because for example, I wouldn't come into the entertainment industry, like into your industry, Oliver, and be like, hey man, this is how you need to hit that line. This is how you need to remember this. You know what? Maybe you should do a little bit better this way. If I did that, Oliver, you would look at me like I was crazy. Like no. Like if I just showed up on set one day and be like, Oliver, we got to cut that. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, we got to do it this way. And you'd be like, bro, who is like somebody get this dude out?
Hey, Ryan tried to step into the athletic world once.
Hey, well, hold on,
I was
bro.
with him. He was like, I'm an athlete. He shot this basketball and airball. And just side story.
Man. Oh yeah, I am an athlete.
But let me ask you a question though, as far as being black officers go. I mean, do you think that there's an advantage to creating and coalescing and bringing a group of black officers together to talk about fact? Because that's why I love talking to you. You've been on both sides of things. You talk about how you grew up, and then you talked about being an officer. And your training and all of that, right? So, what is the sentiment just in general with black officers around the country right now?
Without a doubt, there's definitely advantages to it. But here's the thing is that we have to be able to encourage others to have that courage to stand up and say something and to use it and understand, like, we have a unique opportunity right now that we can actually bring facts to a situation where we don't know what is fact anymore, because we understand it on both sides of that. And that's where I was kind of getting at with this whole staying in the lane idea is that, we have to be able to listen to the respective persons that are in those positions to speak truth to a matter, you know what I mean, to an extent, because you have people that are going to skew it, obviously, because they're in this profession, so there might be some biases to it. But I would rather listen to a person that is actually inside, that actually knows what goes on, than to a person that has never, and I won't call any names out, but there's certain social media people that have never ever stepped foot in a law enforcement arena, but yet they are now experts in this matter of law enforcement. And it's so irritating because their voice carries so much weight about how we should be doing our job, but yet they've never even stepped foot in the arena. I always use the whole analogy of me playing football. when I played football, I was the quarterback. And so I never forget, man, being out there, and I was shorter. So in high school, I was like 5'9", and I remember dropping back and like looking for a receiver to hit, for an open, to throw the ball to. And it was hard to see because I got all these big linemen that I'm trying to see around. And so I would either throw an interception or I would throw it incomplete. And so we would show it to film on Monday morning. And then I would have all these people being like, oh man, you didn't see that dude? He was wide open. Oh man, what are you doing, Ryan? I'm like, were you freaking out there throwing the ball? And so like I tell people, like it'd be me going to Tom Brady and saying, nah, Tom, you should have threw it out. You should have dumped it out to the guy that hit the flat. Like, and Tom was like, bro, I'm the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game. Why are you sitting here on Sunday telling me what I should have did? And so I think that's what people on some of these social media platforms are doing, as opposed to listening to the horses or going to the source. And so I think as black officers, we are in a unique position because we can speak to both sides. We can speak to the feeling side of it because we've experienced those racial prejudices and things like that. But I can also speak to the factual side of, I know exactly what it's like going to a call where somebody stabs somebody with 9 times and we have to save some or preserve life. I can speak to both sides of that. And so that's kind of what I was getting at earlier, saying this whole idea of staying in your lane. Right now, you have too many people that are getting out of their own lane for the sake of publicity because they know that this is going to push me. I can push my popularity to a place and get followers if I say A, B, C, and D without actually having any knowledge of it. And that's where it's so frustrating. And so I'm glad you guys brought up that whole idea of what's really fact, because you guys hit the nail right on the head, man. People, when they go out and get their factual information, they're going to go and look at the sites that they know are going to give them what they want to hear. They're going to tell me what I want to hear. You know what I mean? That's why when you send me the whole podcast from the guy that is not somebody that I would actually go out of my way, but I still listen to him because I actually get knowledge from them. Like, I can't criticize an atheist if I don't understand why an atheist is an atheist. You know what I mean? Like, I can't just sit here and say, oh, man, you have no right to be an atheist. But at least if I found out why he's an atheist and I can say, oh, okay, I understand where you're coming from. I still don't believe what you believe, but I understand where you're coming from. That comes from a more genuine place than me just saying, oh, I can't get down with you because you're an atheist and I don't believe that.
Oh, right. Oh, for sure. For sure. And by the way, you make a great point. I mean, at the end of the day, we've all been sheep. And there's a lot of sheep right now, man. They're just following and following and following. And I was a sheep. I mean, honestly, when that black square, everyone was posting the black square initially, I was a sheep because I hadn't done any of my own education. I felt like, oh, everyone's doing it, I should. But the reality is bless you. The reality is that I didn't know enough to post that yet. But I did it, and then I felt bad after. I'm like, dude, why did you do that? Well, because everyone's doing it. And I was like, I don't want to be that kind of a person. I don't want to be a sheep in this moment. And then I decided to read and dig and get into some educational things and learn about history more. But there's a lot of sheep. You're right. There's people who are just following the flock because it's going to, everyone's looking for some sort of an identity, especially nowadays, man. Everyone wants to connect. And this is how you can connect. Now, by the way, if you are that sheep and then decide to educate yourself, like you follow at first because you want to be a part of something. And if it's even that simple, but then once you become a part of it, you get to learn and you get to educate yourself. And now you become someone with more knowledge than you were before, then that's okay. If it takes you just needing an identity, just to then dig in a little bit, that's okay. But you're right. A lot of people are just doing this to get more followers, to sell ads. There's no doubt about it.
And the thing I feel bad about too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing I feel bad about is that we've created a society now where, don't get me wrong, and let me say this first, is that our country has not come from the most honorable place. I mean, from slavery to civil rights, all these other things, terrible stuff, like hateful stuff. I mean, there's only one way to describe it, and it's pure hate and evil. But at the same time, if we truly wanted to have positive change, then we have to grow beyond that point. And what I'm getting at is I hate this idea that there are some white people that feel ashamed for being white. Like, I hate that. I hate that. And if I'm gonna be real, I'm gonna be real. Like, so they go out there and they post Black Lives Matter, and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna go support black business and all this other stuff. But at the same time, it's like, and I get this whole idea, this, support black business, support black business. I get it. I understand it. Like, yeah, like, we've been oppressed for many years, and there have been times that we didn't get it. But if what are we fighting for? We're fighting to be equal, right? So if we're fighting to be equal, if somebody, I told somebody the other day, like, what if we just changed the whole, if we flip-flop the words and we took black business out and then we put white business in, we said support white business. How racial would that sound?
Terrible.
It would sound terrible. It would sound terrible. But yet we say support black business, or like, and so I get it. Like, what we're fighting for, we're fighting to be looked at as being equal. I get it. But at the same time, we shouldn't have to make white people feel guilty for being white. We shouldn't have to make, Asian people feel guilty for feeling Asian. Like, we want equal rights, but it doesn't mean we start pushing these agendas to start making you feel bad for what your ancestors did. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't have to make you feel bad for what they did in the past. You know what I mean? We need to call out wrong when it's wrong. So that's why I call out the George Floyd situation, because it was wrong. But it doesn't mean I go out now and make every single white officer feel bad for being a white officer because of the actions of one other individual. You know what I mean? He doesn't make up a majority. Doesn't mean that hate doesn't. Yeah, hate of course exists. We're human beings. There's some hateful people out there, but we as a minority community, and I'm speaking from a black man, I have to, if I want to be treated as an equal person, I also at the same time have to be able to be equal or give the same stuff out to people. I shouldn't be I shouldn't be making you feel bad. AJ, what are your thoughts?
I just had a conversation with one of my really good friends, who's also a young black man, raised in the inner city, was arrested, convicted of a felony in his early years of life, got his life on track. Decided to do the right things, opposed to committing these criminal acts. And now he is in real estate and he is making some serious money, serious money. And he has his hands in all sorts of other stuff where he's bringing in income. He has a beautiful family. I mean, like, everything like in his life, it's just very positive and successful, for a lack of better terms. And he called me up the other day. And he's like, AJ, I'm really frustrated with the way things are going on right now. And he talked about exactly that, like this whole, like, support black business, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I get it, because people need to understand that there are injustices and we are treated differently. But it's hard for me, and I imagine it's hard for you, meaning me, as well, because we never seen it like that. Like, we seen it as, oh, you're not going to treat me fair. Okay, well, watch me succeed.
Exactly.
Like, we seen it as motivation. We seen it as, oh, you want me to fail? Okay, well, I'm going to take that want and that hate that you have in your heart and that desire for you to see me fail, and I'm going to turn it in tenfold. Because if you're mad now, just wait, right? And you, meaning the person who wanted to see me fail, or the person who wouldn't support my business because it's black owned or minority owned, really ended up being the match that was thrown on a gallon of gasoline that started this fire. And I had to agree with him. I was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. Like, it is hard for me to get behind this, because anytime that I approach an obstacle, or anytime that I've faced, groups of people saying I can't do something, or doing their best to stop me from doing something, I've achieved it. Because I've had that dog in me, like, okay, yeah, you're not going to stop me. And I've had people try to stop me from doing things because I'm a minority, because I'm from the inner city. That whole attitude of, well, who do you think you are, boy? Stay in your place, right? Like, they don't come out and say that, but their actions do, right? But at the same time, like, I'm not going to look at that and be like, oh my goodness, like, why? Like, that time I would spend sulking and being upset would have been time that I could have spent coming up with a way around that obstacle. And I'm not saying it's right. Don't get me wrong when I say this. Like, I'm not saying it's right that we're treated differently, that there are injustices and all of that. All I'm saying is do something about it.
Exactly.
Like, get on your feet and get to moving. Like, E.T., my man E.T. said this during one of his speeches, and I love it so much. Like, thank God the slaves ain't think like that, right? Like, thank God the slaves ain't think like that. And we're like, oh my goodness, I'm a slave. We're always going to be a slave. I only eat when they tell me to eat. Like, no, they did something about it. And if it wasn't for them getting on their feet and doing something about it, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in today. Mm-hmm. So I ask you, listening to this, are you going to do something about it and allow somebody 10, 50, 100 years to be in a better place than you are in today? Or are you going to soak in it? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Yep. Those are your two options.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt about it. And then it's just about opportunity. I mean, it's creating equal opportunity, if anything else. That's what just so everyone can be on a level playing field as far as the opportunity goes to buy a house. Lending has been a massive issue for the minority communities in our country. Buying a house, man, that is how you accrue wealth. Literally that one asset is massive in your life. Mm-hmm. And there's been major inequalities from, 200 years ago, 150 years ago, even so it's just about the opportunity,
without a doubt, opportunity. Without a doubt. And that opportunity is huge. And that's why the only thing that we can do is we have to be, like, going back to the beginning of the podcast, be open-minded to have these difficult this conversations with people. And like you said, Oliver, create an opportunity. And AJ, like you said, man, standing up and doing something about it, man. Like, I haven't always known the knowledge. I haven't always known. I didn't really know. My parents, don't get me wrong, my parents were phenomenal parents. We grew up, middle class, and they did a really good job. And I had opportunities that kids that grow up in a lower income neighborhood don't have. But at the same time, I didn't have the knowledge of what it becomes to become wealthy. I didn't know the knowledge of what it means to go out there and acquire or accrue wealth over the years. I had to go out there and do that on my own. And so there comes a level of work that we have to do. You can't just want a handout, put your hand out and say, like, I think one of the things that one of the most detrimental things right now that are going on is, and I get it, we have to have it because of the coronavirus, but the whole unemployment and these stimulus checks, you know what I mean? Because it gets people in the habit of just receiving, but when you actually work and earn something, it's just a little bit more of a, like, I'm gonna be a little bit more careful with how I spend this because I know how hard I had to work to get this, as opposed to, hey man, I remember I went to Best Buy to go get a TV for the office when we got here, and I was talking to my buddy that works there, and this was right when the first stimulus check came out, and I was like, man, so you guys been slow because of coronavirus? He was like, bruh, as soon as the stimulus checks came through, man, we had a surge and people buying stuff. And I'm like, that's terrible. That's terrible. That's not what those stimulus checks were for. They were for to help you live, eat, whatever you need to do, pay your rent. No, he was like, man, people came in to Best Buy in droves just buying stuff. But again, that goes to the education. And so I just think that there's a more systematic problem. It's not just a law enforcement problem. I've talked about this so many times. Law enforcement has a lot of work to do. We can move forward. We will move forward, but we can't just say every single issue that's going on in our society stems from this bad law enforcement problem.
Have you guys felt anything different sort of in the streets, when you are out in the streets in the last 3 months, 4 months, or has it just felt the same?
No, without a doubt, man. We had a dude, my buddy Ryan, somebody flipped him off at an intersection, and Ryan is black. My partner Ryan, he's a black dude and black officer, and so he gets flipped off, and so Ryan turns around, Ryan goes and gives this dude a ticket, and so the thing is though is that the guy is asked later on, like, why did you flip my officer off? And his answer was, oh well, because I just in light of the climate and George Floyd getting killed, I just kind of thought that's kind of like the
oh my God.
And that was his reasoning for flipping this dude off. And it's like, seriously? And so I've definitely noticed a change in people's demeanor and lack of respect. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that feel some type of empathy and feel sad for us. They're like, man, I just want to give you a hug. I want to, do whatever I do because they feel bad. But yeah, I've noticed an increase in violence. There's a lot more. We're taking a lot more guns off the street right now. We've seen a lot more violent calls, a lot more domestic violence calls, A lot of that stuff is ticking up. We had a guy yesterday he was a straight OG, like, you know, been on the block a long time. He was in prison. He said, man, when COVID-19 happened, he said they let all of us out. All of us. He said they basically gave us our papers and just sit us all out. And he was like, man, and there were some bad dudes that got released and all that. And so we're definitely seeing it. We're definitely seeing it, man.
What about officers? Just, you know, obviously there's a certain training that you guys have had, and I'm sure it's different from department to department, but do you find there's a hesitancy now in sort of activating that training when something goes down, because in light of the current situation?
Oh, yeah.
Oh shit.
It's dangerous. Yeah, it's dangerous. We're seeing also, in some ways it's good because officers are thinking more. We're trying to be more cautious of our training. Like I said, I work at a good department. I'm blessed that I work where I work. And I always say, like, you know, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And that's kind of where my department is at. Like, we've been ready. Like, we've been training. So when this all happened, it wasn't like we had to make these massive changes to our organization because we've already been doing the right things. But going back to your point, Oliver, yeah, I've definitely seen, you know, officers become a little bit more hesitant, even myself included, like thinking, like, is it worth it at the end of the day? Like, we had a call the other day. I kid you not. This guy was mad that some kids were playing basketball in his community. And so we're like, okay, are they smoking weed? Are they doing drugs? Are they drinking alcohol? Are they being belligerent? None of that. It's like, no, they're just playing basketball. He's like, well, I'm on the board, the HOA board here, and these kids don't live here, and so they need to go. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, like, it'd be different if these guys are causing a disturbance in your neighborhood. They're playing, but these kids can be out there getting in, like breaking into people's cars, breaking into your house, doing this, but they're playing basketball, and we're living in a quarantine time. These kids have nothing to do. There's no school, no nothing. This might be their one outlet, but you're so focused on, you're on the HOA board that they got to go somewhere. So this dude, my buddy goes out there. He talks to him. He's like, hey man, I talked to him, but my buddy essentially kind of lets him play basketball. Like, hey man, don't even worry about it. The guy calls back. He calls back and he's angry. He's like, oh, you must, and he's talking to me on the phone now. He's like, oh, you must be neutered, huh? They must have neutered you because you can't go out there and get these kids off the basketball court. And I'm like, sir, like, you got to realize, like, do I really want to go out there and start a fight over basketball when there's really, they're playing basketball? Because what's going to happen is if I go out there, they're going to start getting angry at me, and now who knows what could happen. I have to put hands on or whatever it may be over you calling because they're playing basketball. So this guy, I was like, hey sir, you know, we're not going to come out, you know, it is what it is. And so this guy went out there, literally got on a ladder and start taking the courts down, unscrewing the courts in the neighborhood. And so I'm like, are you freaking serious? Like, are you serious right now? And so I don't even know why I got onto that story, but the point for me was just like, man, like, people right now are just acting so ignorant, and it's unfortunate because, you know, there are bigger issues that we should be worried about, but yet you got people worried about people playing basketball.
Yeah. Crazy.
And we end up being the doormat to that. You want me to go out there and be the bad guy. That's where I was getting at. So yeah, that's a battle. Like, hey, we're not going to. Back in the day, we go out there and say, hey man, y'all need to leave, and then now these kids get all crazy. We got to hem them up, sit them down, and now we just started a use of force for what? So now that's caused a lot of our thinking. My thinking at least is like, hey, is it really worth it? Is it worth getting it? Would I rather go to get a complaint filed on me because I refuse to take these kids off the basketball court, or would I rather get a complaint because I actually end up manhandling one of these kids over them playing basketball?
Yep.
So
yeah, that's a great point.
Billy, what we looking like on time?
Hour 8.
Cool.
Okay,
Closing
cool.
thoughts,
Just make
AJ.
sure.
Closing thoughts.
Oh, my closing thoughts are this. You know, I have a presentation that I speak about exactly on this. You know, when it comes down to it, you could be a victim or a victor. It's up to you to choose. You know, when you turn on your social media, when you wake up in the morning and grab your phone, you can either choose to be spoon-fed negativity and false information, or you could choose to be spoon-fed positivity and facts. It's okay to have feelings and to act on those feelings as long as your emotions aren't overpowering your intelligence. We've come a very long way to get where we're at. We still have a very long way to go. With that said, don't stop. Don't stop. Whatever it is, don't stop. If you're fighting for a cause, if you're fighting, for racial injustice, don't stop. keep it moving, keep it pushing. The fight ain't nowhere near being done yet. Like, push harder. If you're fighting to show people how a majority of police officers are in a very positive light right now, don't stop. We need you now more than ever. Like, show your truth. Like, show what's really going on out there. No matter what you're fighting for, just keep going and use your platform wisely.
Good words, man. You sound like you should wrote a book for that. Oliver, man, a pleasure having you, man. Any closing thoughts for our listeners, man?
This has been really great. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking to you guys. I mean, sort of, piggybacking a little bit on what AJ was saying. I think a lot of it too is finding the different perspectives. Like I said in the beginning, read, educate yourself. Don't just look at one side and think that is the truth and that is fact. Check out the other sides. Take some time, and to formulate an opinion based on multiple resources. And the other thing too is it's okay to go slow. I think right now we're living in a culture, living in this world now where it's like you got to do something big. It's got to be big, as far as splashing social media or whatever it is. But, you can go at your own pace. Just keep the engine, keep it running. If it can be in first gear, sixth gear, keep the engine running. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. You can go 1 mile an hour, 10 miles an hour. I think that's important because that's the way I live. I sometimes feel like I'm not doing enough. And then I realize, well, I am. For me right now in this moment, I am doing enough because I have 3 kids. I'm trying to support my family. I've got all kinds of other things going on in my life. And for right now, I'm doing what I can do. And I'm okay with that.
Nice. Man, thanks so much, Oliver. Hey, where can our listeners find you?
Well, Instagram is the Oliver Hudson.
Bro, I love you. I love your profile picture. If you haven't seen his profile picture yet, it's hilarious, bro.
My Instagram's a little crazy, but it's me, and that's why I like it. Honestly, it's as authentic as it gets. That's it, man. I'm on one platform.
And then what about your podcast?
Podcast is Sibling Revelry. My sister and I have one. I have another one called Daddy Issues with Joe Buck. He's a sportscaster. He's a friend of mine. We talk about all things fathers. It's really good, really fun. Oh,
nice.
Man.
I'm going to tune into that today.
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's really good. We've had some amazing guests on. Really fun guests. Yeah.
Very cool.
We had Barkley on a little while ago. He was really, really great. That guy's just an amazing man.
That's cool.
We've had some really fun people. Yeah. So just doing my thing, trying to keep busy.
Man.
It's not easy because I'm supposed to be doing a TV show right now. I'm supposed to be on set working right now, but obviously that's not happening.
Yeah, man. No, I appreciate you so much, Oliver, man. If you guys get a chance, please go check out Oliver on Sibling Revelries, as well as his other podcast that he just mentioned, and follow him on Instagram. I guess my last words would be this. One of the things you said earlier, Oliver, just really it really kind of touched me, and it made me think too, is this whole sheep mentality and the fact of, the example you gave of the whole black post, the blackout post. And not to say whether it's right or wrong that you made a blackout post, but to take the time to think about why you're going to do something. Like, what am I trying to accomplish by me doing X? Whatever that X is, like, think about the why that you're doing it. I think a lot of times right now, people are just doing things because everybody else is doing it, so I should do it as well. Make sure you have a conviction that you need to post it, and make sure, like AJ said, do the research, as much research as you can, and do research from both sides of the spectrum, not just from the side that you're going to hear what you want to hear, because that's where you're going to, every time I go on a call for service, I always tell people this. There's his side, there's her side, and then there's the truth. Every single call I go on, because when I go talk to him, he's going to give me a different ordeal of how everything transpired. When I go talk to her, she's going to give me her perspective of how it all transpired, which is her truth. And somewhere in between that, I got to find out what the real truth is. We should be living our life like that. We should be going day to day like that. We shouldn't be just be getting it from his side. We shouldn't just be getting it from her side. We should get a little bit of both and then formulate your own opinion on what you believe to be the truth. That's the best way to do things right now. We don't have enough of it right now. So, drop your pride, humble yourself, ask yourself why, and let's get out of that sheep mentality and have a wolf mentality. So let's lead that pack, man. Thanks again so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
No problem, man. Let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Thin Line Anthem. Thank you, Thin Line Anthem, for supporting and sponsoring this podcast. If you are trying to get in shape, if you need to, drop a lot of those quarantine pounds that we put on, because I know a lot of us have probably had those quarantine snacks, and we got to put those quarantine snacks away.
The potato chips are a killer, boy.
The things is a killer. If you are trying to lose those quarantine pounds like I am, go ahead and go on to thinlineanthem.com and go ahead and use promo code It's Neither, all caps, and you will get 20% off of their supplements. Thin Line Anthem is a good product that I use. AJ uses, so does Billy. Billy's over here looking like the Hulk. So use it because it will help.
Medium on.
Yeah, it is probably because he has a medium shirt on, but use it. It's some good stuff. So he got his son's T-shirt on right now.
This is a large. This is an Old Navy large.
It's a
youth large.
So, but thank you guys. We appreciate you. If you guys have any other special guests you want to hear, send us a DM. Let us know who it is that you want to hear, and also make sure you guys leave us a 5-star rating, 5-star review, so that way we know what it is that we're doing right, but we also want to know what we can improve on if we're doing something wrong. Thanks again. God bless, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.
Peace.